Hello everyone, welcome to TopCoding session number 5. My name is Min Kim. Today's session is how to make money on TopCoder. So, first with a little bit of a warning, there's actually no coding in this session. However, I think it's an interesting enough topic where it merits not having any code. We can thank one of my few but awesome viewers for the idea of this video, and we'll just go ahead and step into it. So, the steps that we need to take high level in regards to making money on TopCoder is first evaluate your challenge, next register, then configure your workstation environment, your computer, your laptop, build the actual solution and produce the requested deliverables, and finally submit the requested deliverables. So let's go into each of the steps. So the first step is to evaluate your challenge, and this is important. So the first thing that we're going to do is as you look through it, and when you look at the list of all the challenges, some of you might be tempted to immediately look at the payment. I'm going to suggest that we focus on some other stuff, because again, our goal is to make money. And although we're tempted to look at the money amounts, there are other aspects of whether or not you'll be able to make money. So first, determine your challenge type. Are you looking for a design challenge? Are you looking for a coding challenge or a data challenge? Whatever you think you'll be best suited for, that's what you should go for. Next, review the actual deliverables that are being requested. So some people request the code. Well, I think everyone requests code, unless it's design work, right? But then other people will also request additional specific things, such as the requirements documentation, build documentation, deployment, installation, and configure documentation, as well as test plans and evidence of the test plans being executed. I have seen some requesters actually asking for video presentations and walkthroughs. So you'll also have to have additional familiarity with the various tools such as FFsplit, XSplit, and then some sort of level of comfort being able to present those items and ideas. So after you've reviewed all the deliverables and made sure that those are things that you can handle and take care of, then review what actual platform and technologies are being requested of. Are you already proficient with the specific platforms and technologies? And if you're not, are you leveraging this challenge to grow in those specific aspects? So again, if you're doing that, you're not really aiming for the making money part, but there's immense value from all of the experiences coming out of this. So then next, again, going into the actual platforms, do you have an environment that can handle whatever is being requested of? And this is specifically requested in regards to if some people might ask for an iPhone development application in which you'll need an actual Apple either desktop or laptop. You'll need OS X in general. And if some things might actually require like a cloud VM and you have to configure those things, and you'll have to have familiarity with Linux where you might only be familiar with Windows, or vice versa. So just make sure that you review the platform and technologies and that you're comfortable with that so that you can successfully solve what's being asked. Next, review the actual requirements, and this is slightly different from deliverables because this is the actual problem requirements and what's being asked of. So the actual project overview. What do you actually have to do in the project? And then get a sense of if it's possible within your skill set. So if they're asking for writing a brand new software with XYZ, then can you do that? Or if it's fixing a specific bug, just look into what are the actual requirements of the specific problem. And then on the requirements, it'll also typically think about how much time you actually have left. So if you see that there is a problem that says I need you to generate an application that has 5 different screens and serializes all the data to a database and runs through a workflow engine based upon multiple users, and also has specific authentication modules, and also has to be done in 7 days. Think about whether or not you can actually accomplish all that within the time frame, because if you can't complete those requirements within the time frame, you're not going to end up making the money. Then finally, when you look at all that and you think, okay, all of those things above I can handle, I can do within the time frame, I have familiarity with it, then look at the payment and say, okay, this is going to be something I can do and it's worth my time, and so I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. Okay. So that's the first part, evaluating challenge. Next, register. So I have a single slide here, and I'm only really pointing this part out right now is because TopCoder is still going through, I guess, a refactor on their website. So when I was playing with it, the new page actually goes to the old page to register. So you're on the first page to register. When you click it, got to make sure then you go to navigate to the old page and then click register again. The other thing about registration is that you're going to have to deal with specifics in regards to intellectual property. So the challenge sponsors we're going to have, they're potentially going to provide you with their ideas, or they're going to provide you with their source code. So you might have to sign some non-disclosure agreements, which are documents that pretty much stipulate that you cannot share their ideas, or you're not going to go ahead and distribute their ideas and their source code on the internet, or to your friends, or your wife, or dog. Okay, so let's see. Next, configure environment. Now, I wanted to actually bullet out a whole bunch of things that I did in regards to configuring the environment for this specific problem, because I don't want anyone to think that, oh, configuring your environment is going to be like a really quick and easy thing. And this is the part that actually kind of makes these things challenging, is that there needs to be a lot of communication between you and the challenge sponsor to make sure that you're at a point where you can even start the problem. So here, this was a TopCoder project, TopCoder sponsored project, where they wanted you to fix a bug. They actually didn't want you to fix a bug. They wanted you to solve a problem, but yet rewrite a module completely from scratch. But in regards to configuring the environment, this specific thing, I had to set up a private key. There was like 40 billion documents on how to do this, by the way, and they all pointed back and forth to each other, and so it was really confusing. And I think I'll mention that later. But so first, set up a private key, generate the private key, associate it with your TopCoder profile, associate it with your SSH tool, then request the actual source control access. And this is Subversion. Again, another tool that you might have to be familiar with. And this, there was no like formalized web form. You had to send an email, and then very specifically, you had to include all the details that you wanted. And again, because there's no web form, you really had to make sure you paid attention to all the details that they were asking, so that when you send the email, you include all the details that they're asking for. Next, you set up their VM. In this specific item, you had to request the VM on the forum/challenge discussion. I put that specifically there, and again, the things that I'm really gonna try to just drill is that everything has to be read carefully, and if you're not familiar with it, be very open to asking questions, because if you don't ask questions, if you're silent, you're just not going to make much progress. So I didn't realize at first that the forum was a challenge discussion, and one thing I think says register on the forum, which on the new page it says challenge discussion, on the old page it says forum, so you have to be able to navigate your way through there. Then the virtual machine details are actually sent to you. So I didn't actually know once I requested it what was actually supposed to happen. Again, there was no form, or there was no automated thing that really gave in a lot of detail. So then I waited for my email, didn't get it. Check your spam folders. I waited 2 days before I finally realized, oh, let me check my spam folder for the things. Okay, and I put here about the whole reviewing the 4 wiki pages, because this specific virtual machine was a Linux environment. They had mountains and mountains of documentation on setting up the environment. And then the worst part was none of that was actually really pertinent to the actual problem. So the next step was acquiring a deployment guide. Now, some of them will actually have a deployment guide, which is for that specific problem, how you get to the point where you can start the problem. However, unfortunately, I was still at a point where once I leveraged the deployment guide, it still just wasn't working. The coding environment just wasn't working. I had to fix invariable items that, again, based upon knowing the actual tools, I was able to get to it. But again, if you're not familiar with it, you're going to have a really hard time. Communicate. All right, there's just some other stuff about running the scripts, and it just wasn't matching the documentation. Just really painful before you can start the problem. I mean, I wasn't literally doing this every night. Obviously, I had a full-time job, but definitely probably through a course of a week, an hour and a half each night, just trying to like go through this and wade through it and go through documentation and posting messages on the forum. The main thing that I can suggest is you want to be able to build a communication channel to somebody who's actually going to know what to do, so that way you can get some answers and keep moving forward. So once you configure your environment, you can finally begin actually working on the problem. So when you work on the actual problem, I'm putting notes here about reviewing the requirements again, because again, that's the main parts of what you're actually having to solve now. And so now you're going to review what you actually have to solve. You're going to review the number of deliverables that you have to have. Then you're going to actually code it. You'll code it, you'll test it, you'll validate it. Then you're going to produce the actual deliverable pack. And again, the deliverable pack has to be in the specific format the code challenge sponsor requests. Sometimes they'll even say like, I want a zip file, and in the zip file I want like 3 folders. And in the 3 folders I want code arranged like this, and documentation arranged like this, and blah 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 arranged like this. Now, again, you know, there typically is a human on the other side, so a person will be reviewing it, and there's probably going to be some leniency, I gather, but again, you have to make sure that you provide everything that they ask for, and based upon the nature of the actual challenges, it's very possible that you won't win just because of the fact that you didn't produce the deliverable pack as requested. You never know. Okay, but assuming that you produce a deliverable pack exactly as documented, you got everything done, you can then finally go ahead and submit and hope that you win. So so those are generally the steps. Again, I realized that at first, looking at this, I thought, oh, maybe it's going to be just something that's really simple, just like, how does anybody make money in TopCoder? No, you just go to TopCoder.com and just enter challenges. But again, the most important part is that the challenges are just like working either as an independent consultant for a real client, or working for a company and having business analysts who are providing you with the spec. There's no like clear-cut definition. It's not like the TopCoder actual like algorithm challenges, where it's just like solve this problem and here are the test cases and write this one class. This is definitely a situation where communication is incredibly important to reaching out to challenge sponsors, making sure you're building it, making sure that you're reaching out, because again, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is making sure that they'll support your case for giving you that prize money. So I hope this really helps out, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. So with that, thanks again for everybody who been watching these videos, and if you do like the video, please subscribe, and then otherwise, also please provide more feedback if you have any, and then I will see you guys next time. Keep on coding on, guys. Chicka chicka woo woo.